So I often hear this story where somebody says that they have this great stock and you should invest in the stock. It's this great company and you should invest in it. And I always think of the Duck song whenever I hear that. You know the song? It's the Duck song. Dun, 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 dun. And I want you to stay with me and why that actually is. And what I would recommend, this is what I do personally, this is what I would teach everything. This is basically what the literature says, research literature says, but don't invest in these single stocks. Don't invest in a single company. What you want to do is invest broadly in these things called mutual funds or index funds, which is a broader set of mutual funds. So what is a mutual fund? It's just a group of different companies that are collected together in one big category. Now, an index fund is all of the firms that we know of on a particular stock market that is collected together, and they invest in that particular, and you invest broadly in those index funds. They're really easy to find these things. You can look them up. They're all over the place, but that's basically what most financially savvy people do, is they don't invest in index funds. Now, let's come back to the Duck song in terms of what's going on. So the primary reason why I don't do that, and the primary reason why I would never, ever, ever invest in a single stock, is because I'm not smart enough. I don't understand the world. I don't understand anything. And so I recognize this limitation in me of not being all that smart and not being that astute about the world. And so what does the Duck song have to do with this? Well, if you listen to the story of the Duck song, I encourage you to go watch it. It's one of my favorites. When my kids were smaller, we'd watch it all the time. I was just watching it today, by the way. And the Duck song is about how this duck walks up to a guy at a lemonade stand, and the duck asks for grapes at the lemonade stand, and the guy says, "No, I don't have any. It's a lemonade stand." So the duck walks away, and then the duck comes back the very next day, does the same thing, and the guy says, "No, no, no, this is the lemonade stand." So he does this a couple of times. The duck finally comes back, and the guy gets wise. He's really smart at this moment. He can predict the market. And then the duck, so he actually goes and buys some grapes at the store. And then the duck says, "I don't want these anymore." And the guy just freaks out, right? The guy at the lemonade stand just freaks out, doesn't know what to do. And this is very predictive. This tells you exactly what goes on in the market all the time. We cannot predict how consumers are going to behave. We can't predict what's actually going to go on with a particular company. There's so many things that happen in a day-to-day, and it seems wonderful. So that's one side, right? So on the consumer side, it seems wonderful that everything should work out, but the world rarely works out in the way that we ever think it does. It's really, really messy. On the other side, so if I think that there's a great investment, there is much smarter people than me that's out there that's actually going to make this investment before I possibly can. And there's a great book that talks about this called The Flash Boys, if you haven't seen it. And the story is basically how there are people that have invested huge amounts in financial infrastructure that are far wealthier than you and me and in most of the world. And they invest in this infrastructure to get deals much faster than what everybody else can buy into the stock market faster than everybody else can. And so what this suggests is that you cannot bet on predicting the market. You can't predict on where it's going to go, and there's nothing that anybody's ever going to tell you that's going to have a wise impact. As soon as you have that voice, it's actually called the efficient market theorem, I believe. But basically, as soon as you think about it, as soon as you talk about it, that information's already known. It's out there. And that all it means is that it's going to be priced into the market. And you can't compete on that. So what can you compete on? Long run trends. Things like the economy increasing, things like I bet on America, I bet on Canada, I bet on Italy, I bet on England, I bet on all these different countries that the businesses are actually going to do really well in those places. And I bet on optimism for the future. I bet that there's going to be great technologies that are going to come that I've never experienced. I don't know what those things are. And the only way I can make those bets is if I just invest as widely as I possibly can. And if I do that for a long enough period, I could take advantage of some of those things that come my way. So I'm never going to bet on one single thing, but I'm going to bet on everything. And hopefully every once in a while, something's going to work out when I do that. That's it. That's why I never take those deals. And that's why the duck song is a great, great metaphor for how business actually works.